Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, 18-hour special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. This is the only daily MSME platform in the country, a show where you can voice your concerns and get answers to all your queries directly from our team of experts. We understand the issues that you, the MSME entrepreneur, face, and the show aims to bring you the most relevant and the most updated information on everything related to your businesses. Tonight, we're doing a pre-budget special, and in studio with me, I have Ajay K. Kapoor. He's the DMD of Sidmi. We have Vishal Thakkar. He's the Director of SME Consulting. And joining us from Delhi is Amarjeet Singh, his partner at KPMG. Gentlemen, thank you all very much for being with us here tonight to talk about essentially leading up to the budget. What should MSMEs, SMEs really be prepared for in terms of the several policy changes? The biggest, of course, is going to be GST. And maybe, Mr. Kapoor, let me start with you to just talk to MSMEs and SMEs about what, in your mind, one or two top benefits are really going to be out of this policy.
I think GST is very exciting for SMEs because SMEs, as you know, that they have a large number of them are suppliers to larger companies, and so it embeds them into the supply chain because GST, and once its coverage increases and the benefits of incremental rates being smoothened, it brings a lot of predictability to SMEs. It establishes their competitive position. But I think another thing which is happening alongside is Reserve Bank of India had promulgated guidelines for TReDS platform, that is trade e-discounting of receivables, and the first platform, Receivable Exchange of India, which has been set up by SIDBI and National Stock Exchange. It has just started operations now, and we expect a lot of corporates to come on board. So GST and the electronic invoicing which is happening with GSTN, authentication happens, and the force of e-discounting, which will bring the interest rates really down for SME suppliers. I think it's a very welcome thing. Both things happening together, it's a multiplier force.
Okay, so before I bring Vishal in as a CA to break it down for our viewers, let me come to you, Amarjeet. Do you agree with everything Mr. Kapoor has just said in terms of the biggest benefits we are likely to see for MSMEs?
Well, absolutely, I completely agree. The best thing, the best reform which has happened, which will be happening in this country, is the introduction of GST. It will not only make the supply chain more sophisticated, I'm telling you, it will add to the profitability of SMEs, because there will be greater predictability in terms of supply chain, the pricing, the availability, and everything. And also, as and when they are making sales, based on that, if the platforms like credit platforms come into play, their need for funding goes down substantially. So their ability to actually expand and grow becomes much better. So I would think, we keep on comparing India to China, how in China there are 35 to 40 to more than 50 million SMEs which are actually thriving in Alibaba kind of environment. With the GST into play, I think India will be moving into that particular zone very quickly, because SMEs will be able to thrive. They'll be able to raise funds much quicker compared to what has been happening in the past.
Okay, fair enough. So Vishal, let me ask you then to just break it down for our viewers, and I want my questions to you to be a little more specific in terms of what is going to be the biggest change. One is, initially you were talking about, for example, on what is GST going to be applied. Is there any clarity on that? GST as a destination tax. What is really your comments on that? And also the fungibility of credit, and possibly which of these do you think is going to be the biggest concern for MSMEs, and help them understand it?
Okay, first of all, let me start with the first good news coming to the way of MSME when we talk about GST, that till date, whatever indirect taxes that were there, they were taxes on honesty. If you are a registered dealer, you are forced to collect tax from your customer and pay it to the government. Whereas an unregistered dealer would just come sell his wares at a cheaper price, of course, because he does not have to collect the tax and get away with the money. But I think demonetization coupled with GST, the biggest benefit would be that all of these dealers would have to get registered, and they would have to collect tax from the customers. And the good news is that they would also get credit of that tax from their suppliers. So suddenly what happens is that there's a level playing field established, and the registered dealers who are feeling the pain of undercutting now goes away to a very large extent, and they would be able to do business in a more peaceful manner, and they would see that their customers will not run away just because they are charging tax.
Okay.
Secondly, the question that you have been very, very specific about is that excise is on manufacture, VAT is on sale. The basis of charge or the trigger point on which GST would be applied would be supply. So when you supply goods or services to anyone, it could be your own branch in another state or it could be your customer, GST gets triggered. Till yesterday or even now, we are accustomed to the regime of C form, F form and other forms under the CST rule, wherein for transferring goods from one branch to other branch, or let's say factory to a branch in a different state, is happening with the help of F form and there is no tax levied on the same. But going forward, GST would also be charged on these transactions where a transfer price would have to be established between the two entities. So to say entities, because it is an internal entity, the branch is an internal entity for the company itself, and GST would be paid in two stages. So in an ideal way, when you combine all of this with e-invoicing, what happens is that there emerges a very, very transparent system where all of this would be tracked online and will happen in a very, very seamless manner. So it will reduce a lot of administrative burden for the government. At the same time, ease of doing business will get established at the MSME level, and transparency will go down to the last person. So these are some of the benefits. Talking about your next question on destination tax, I think the biggest blessing to India INC that happens through GST is going to be destination tax, because till date we are taxing people on the first point. Now we are moving the point of taxation to the last mile. So what happens is that the states which are producing used to get taxes till date. But now the states where the material gets consumed, the goods or services that get consumed, will now get tax. So your biggest net consuming states like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Kerala, Jharkhand, all of these suddenly become very, very attractive investment destinations, because now these state governments will see a lot of money flowing to them, and they would be able to do the developmental activities in their area, which was erstwhile ignored because these states never had funds.
Amarjit, we get a lot of queries from our viewers who say that they're afraid that GST in the short term at least is going to have a huge cost impact as far as the companies are concerned. What would you have to say to them? Do you think in the long run the benefits are going to far outweigh any short term pain they will have to see?
See, whenever we talk to our clients, we say GST is not a change of law. We say GST is a change of business model. How you've been doing business in the past, you need to completely start relooking at. And the things which get impacted by GST are your working capital. What get impacted by GST is your IT system, if you have some IT system into play, your supply chain, which is your warehousing strategy, your inventory carrying strategy, etc. So therefore, every SME actually which was actually struggling to compete with larger companies in terms of warehousing, in terms of inventory, etc. I think they might come almost at par with larger players who always had the muscle power to have warehouses in every state, do stock transfers, and through that stock transfer they could make the availability of their product much quicker than an SME. Now things are going to come little bit at par. Similarly, SME, which was always compliant with law, they always found cheated against an unorganized player who was not compliant with law. So over a period of time, what is going to happen as GST comes into play, since all the audit trails, etc., will be established, the people who are compliant with law, who've been actually paying their taxes on time, etc., they will get an impetus and growth in their particular business. So on an overall basis, yes, there will be a little bit of cost initially to be compliant from a GST perspective, but over a period of time, what we're going to see are SMEs are going to gain out of GST only. But they need to understand, they need to make changes in their business model. They need to definitely ensure that before the law comes into play, they are very clearly able to change their supply chain, etc. They are able to get electronic invoices in terms of their purchases. They are able to issue electronic invoices to their buyers. So these changes will have to be done by them in a very quick manner, and there will be a cost associated with that.
Fair enough. So that's all about GST. Let's take a very quick break at this point. On the other side, we will talk about finance, we will talk about the manufacturing sector, and also address the top concerns that you, the MSME viewer, may have. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. With us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we are discussing all things you, the MSME manufacturer, you, the MSME viewer, should keep in mind ahead of the budget. Mr. Kapoor, let me come to you. A few days back, we heard from the Commerce Minister, who said that her wish list for the budget for SMEs and MSMEs was that she would like to see better handling of SMEs and MSMEs by banking institutions. I do not want to go into the merits or demerits of that statement, but we get a lot of questions from our viewers in terms of how they should ideally be approaching banks. They should ideally be approaching institutions like yourself to get the required funding. I would like for you to talk to our viewers about what you think is hygiene that they should keep in mind about approaching any institutions for finance.
I think very interesting, because you mentioned two things. One is, in general, ease about getting credit, access to credit for SME. The government is increasingly taking that as a priority. And second, you mentioned about the hygiene they ought to keep in mind. This is very, very relevant, I think, also with the discussion we just had on GST, because the hygiene factor is very important factor in the cost of finance to them. As we know that SMEs in the country really struggle with convincing bankers with their books of account. And the new, the digital era that we are entering with the demonetization and with the GSTN, and I mentioned also about trade receivable, we're going to see bankers willing to accept the accounts of SMEs much, much better. So with the same profile on risk side, earlier larger borrowers would have a benefit over smaller borrowers just because of the hygiene factor coming from the accounts. So this is changing. With regard to access also, I think while the government has been working a lot, we can expect to happen on the ease of doing business. How do we improve that? But from the banking point of view, the step which is needed is how do you bring transparency? If you approach a bank, does really bank provide you with an application form? Can you expect tight delivery, schedules or SLAs from the banks to the SME? So one important step has been the launch of, Udyami Mitra portal by SIDBI, together with the stand-up program which was launched by the government, by the Prime Minister last year. So this is a portal on which any SME can go online, apply for a loan, choose the bank branches. There are more than 1 lakh bank branches which are directly logged onto it. And they can choose whichever bank branches they want, up to 3. Their application in the marketplace, the banks to which they have applied got to respond. The mail goes to them, to their controlling offices. The whole thing is monitored by state level and district level credit committees. The government also monitors it. So it's no longer possible for a banker to hide behind the fact that, no, I didn't get the application, or that, I've called for information, so on and so forth. So it's bringing transparency. So the portal already has thousands of SMEs which have applied for loans online. And I think close to 1,000 SMEs have already got the loan approved. Nearly 600 that have got actually disbursement done. So I think there's a sea change which is coming about with the digital approach of the government, and I think SIDBI is also trying to push the same.
Amarjeet, I want to talk to you about investment into R&D. We've heard specifically from the pharma space that, they're being forced to take their R&D operations outside of India because there's not enough support that comes into the sector. But I want to talk about R&D across the board, across industries. Do you expect to see anything by way of SOPs or commentary for R&D?
What has happened is in the last budget, the finance minister clearly said that he wants to last budget, he said that he'll bring the corporate tax rate down to 25%. But as a part of bringing down the corporate tax rate down, he wants to withdraw all exemptions and benefits. So the R&D in India over a period of time, weighted reduction has been given to companies which are doing in-house R&D. And now there's a sunset clause which clearly says that by 2020, the weighted reduction will completely go away. For the next 2 years, the weighted reduction will be brought down to 150%. But I think there is some, I would say that I disagree with this entire approach, because we as a country are really hungry for technology. So as far as the R&D is concerned, even larger Western countries like whether it's US or whether it's UK, they still provide lots of benefits, weighted reduction in respect of their R&D expenditures which are done by the companies. So in spite of the fact that UK has almost moved to a 20% corporate tax rate. So I think India at this stage should not actually take away the weighted reduction in respect of R&D is concerned. And as you talk about MSME and SME sector, if you ask me, for our MSME and SME sector to actually become world class, it is very important that they are able to imbibe the latest R&D. And for that purpose, India as a country has to really spend a lot of money in their research institution, in their universities, which are able to share some of these technological developments across with SMEs and MSMEs. As of now, I think India is really lagging behind, and to that extent, I think there is a need for continuation of tax holidays, exemptions, weighted reductions, anything relating to R&D, which is given to institutions like universities, which is given to third-party institutions, because I think SMEs and MSMEs on their own, they'll find it extremely difficult to do in-house expenditure on very incremental kind of R&D. They can do expenditure on incremental R&D, but not any world-class R&D. So this is one area I would believe that the FM actually looks at it a little more differently compared to what he's been talking out for taking out exemptions under this sector.
All right, then let's get some quick closing comments then on this panel, and let me come to you first, Mr. Kapoor. Even as everyone is, watching out for the budget, watching out in terms of what impact it's going to be, one thing that's going to be top of mind for everyone, they're going to say, is 2017 going to be kind to MSMEs in terms of interest rates?
I think one should expect so. The kind of liquidity we are seeing in the banking sector post demonetization, so the benefit of that has already started going to the SMEs. I am witnessing this already across India. More and more banks are willing to provide funding at very affordable rates. So even TREDS, the early indicator, the discounting which we are seeing, it's very close to MCLR. So TREDS bringing great relief, and most of the banks driving their MCLR down. So this has already begun. It's only a question of time before it's across the sector. But of course, in medium term, it would depend much on the excess liquidity, how banks deal with that, and how's the demand upswing. Because demand upswing is expected to be big. I agree with the fellow commentators that we expect manufacturing to really surge from here. And so banks should be able to push the credit up as the demand surge is high. But that may, in the medium term, bring some pressure on interest rates once again. As of now, it's good time.
Okay, very quickly then, Vishal, we've spoken about the budget, we've spoken about GST. I want to ask you about the Companies Act. Do you expect any further changes possibly this year for MSMEs, and how would that benefit?
Okay. See, the Companies Act has been drafted in line with most of the global standards, and the initial experience of the larger set of companies itself has been that it's quite difficult and challenging to implement those granular changes which are coming our way. So definitely, in terms of On the ease of business side, we will definitely see some kind of relief. In fact, the government has already started taking some steps towards making changes in Companies Act, where smaller companies would do away with a lot of procedural formalities, compliances which are otherwise required to do, and they would always have to run back to their experts or chartered accountants to get all those formalities out of the way. So now we are definitely expecting some more incremental steps by the government in this budget, wherein they would say that a lot of procedural aspects which are not required, so to say, or which are less relevant, will definitely go out of the way. Yes.
Okay, Amanjeet, let me give you the final word then. If there is one or two top things that you think should definitely change for MSMEs in the budget going forward this year, what will those be?
If you ask me, there is a need to reduce the overall compliance burden from a tax and regulatory perspective, whether it's a GST or a corporate tax rate, or whether it's a labor laws. I think MSME sector have been talking about that. The government thinks that SME is the economic pillar for this country. They talk about how it generates employment. So there's definitely a need to reduce overall compliance burden on this particular sector. Secondly, there's definitely a need to reduce the overall tax burden itself. The presumptive scheme, wherein if you're using digital media for this particular year, the presumptive scheme tax rate has come down from 8% to 6% if your top line is 2 crores. Somewhere that has to be increased to a limit of 5 crores, and this 6% rate should actually continue for next few years. So I think there is definitely a need for the rate, the compliance, and at the same time, as we said, as we were talking about availability of funding to SME sector along with the R&D and new technology. These 3, 4, 5 things if given, I think our SME sector is already world class. We will start beating the world in terms of some of the products and some of the services which we provide.
All right, gentlemen, thank you all very much for being with us here tonight on this pre-budget special. We do trust that we've been able to answer most of your queries. If you have anything that you would like to tell us, if you have any feedback for us, do remember you can always write in at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can personally tweet at me at Sunanda_J. You can reach us on social media using the hashtag LOT or call us on that number you see on your screen. We promise to have all your questions answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.